So if you live in Northern California, more specifically the Bay Area, and you want to move to Texas, this video is really going to surprise you. So I like helping people relocate to Austin, and the majority of my relocation customers right now happen to be from Northern California. And the main question that they always have is, what can I get for my money? Recently, I did a video on what can $1.5 million get you in the Austin area versus the Bay Area. Now we're going to talk about what can $750,000 get you versus the Bay Area. Yeah, so let's break down the numbers. And you know what? I am two things: older and not an actor that memorizes lines. So I'm going to use some notes here. So let's break down the numbers on the comparisons from Austin to the Bay Area. So we'll take this example. It's about a 3,800 square foot home, super comfortable, really well appointed. So in San Francisco, in premium neighborhoods, we'll say, this would average about $800 to $1,100 per square foot. What does that mean when we pencil that out? That's $3.4 to $4.2 million. Here in Georgetown, this pencils out to about $750,000, right? So giant difference. In the peninsula area, in the Bay Area, so the same house, that's gonna be in like Palo Alto area, if you will, 3.6 to almost $5 million. So I'd like to give you like an idea of how the different neighborhoods are gonna compare. San Jose in Northern California, where they focus mainly on great schools, right? Is gonna be 2.4 to $3.8 million. So you can see that those differences, they start to add up really quickly. Yeah, so like I previously mentioned, if we bring all those Northern California examples and bring them down here to Georgetown, today we're in Palmer Ranch and Weston Homes. So it's similarly appointed to kind of what we've been talking about, 3,800-ish square feet. And depending on, there's several builders in these neighborhoods. So depending on which builder you choose, how it's appointed, if there's a swimming pool that you get built in, a lot of that can impact the price, but for the most part, we're looking at between $750,000 to $800,000 in this neighborhood, right? So how does that compare to $3 million to $5 million? I think you can get quite a bit for your money here in Georgetown if you're reloading here from Northern California. So why the difference? Probably three reasons that I can come up with, that there's such a massive difference between Bay Area home costs and Georgetown home costs. So the first and foremost would be land value, right? So land just costs more there. And I don't know if you're aware, but like if you're driving through a neighborhood and you see house A on one end of a street costs $50,000 less than house B on the other end of the street sometimes, a lot of times that just boils down to what it costs the builder to acquire that piece of dirt that they built the house on. And they have to factor that in as a percentage of the end cost. So sometimes that's a pretty big determining factor. The second thing that it comes to mind is income levels, and demand. So in Northern California, the demand area is shrunk down quite a bit just because of the need for people to have a reasonable commute to get to where they work or live or go to school and all that. And then income levels are pretty dramatically different from the Austin area in a whole to the Northern Bay Area, California. And then the final thing that probably makes one of the bigger impacts is the construction costs and sometimes the construction methods that are dependent on regulations. So I guess everybody knows it's no secret that regulations are more in California, and to comply and meet with those regulations and then provide the same product, even though these are similar products that are built here that are built there, just costs more to meet those regulatory needs. So we've talked about like regulations, different costs in acquiring land and all that stuff. So how does that equate to a difference in value? So people that I've helped buy homes here, they don't mention that they feel like the homes are like lower in quality or anything like that. It just boils down to those other things that we talked about dramatically impact the cost of a home. So very basically, it costs less to build here. It costs less to live here in general. So at the end of the day, that's gonna mean that the homes that you buy here are also gonna cost less. But you're gonna get, like I said, the same quality or sometimes even better quality, because this is Texas, at a much lower price. So $750,000 versus $3 to $5 million. Yeah, so what does all that mean whenever we condense it down? Like what's the value proposition here if you want? So land costs, land acquisition, land value in general, just because of its desirability, the cost of construction, regulations, all that boils down to dramatically lower cost. Yeah, so I guess to wrap it all up, relocating to Central Texas can feel like a big deal depending on where you're coming from. But also depending on where you're coming from, if you really look at the numbers, it really makes a lot of sense. So if you're planning a move, reach out to me directly. I'll run the table on your behalf. So do all the things for me, like, subscribe, and click all the appropriate little check boxes for me.